Hi, this is Regeline Sabat, also known as Gigi. You're listening to Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Nita Patel. Nita Patel is a speaker, author, and artist who believes in modern etiquette as a path to becoming our best selves. Welcome to the show, Nita.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us about you and where you're from?
Sure. How far are we going back here?
Way back. Take us way back.
Way back. So I was born and raised partially, I was born in England. I was partially raised there, and I moved to Dallas when I was pretty young. But as a child, we traveled back and forth quite a bit. So I went to school in both countries, and I learned all about, two extreme cultures, a Southern culture in the States and a very proper British culture in London. So that's part of the reason that I wrote my book. And it was, a part of my foundation growing up. I studied psychology, and I have been in the corporate world for about 25 years in technology specifically. And I did a lot of hiring. And that was one of the reasons also that I was inspired to write this book and share the information on the importance of, how your personal presence matters and how to put your best foot forward.
I love it. Now, tell us more about your 5-step program to confidence.
5-step program to confidence is about, you have to understand what you're working with, right? So you have to understand yourself a little bit more. So understanding your fears and learning how to manage them, understanding the power of forgiveness practice. I think that's something that's underrated. People don't really understand the value of that. And so that is a big foundational piece. So we look within, and then the next 2 steps are outside. How do you dress? How do you communicate? What does your body language say? How do you shift your body language so that you feel more confident? So 2 steps, which are looking inside, 2 steps about your exterior presence. And then the 5th step is really about what is it that you want to do? What is the dream that you have, and how do we convert that into achievable goals? And so you do the inner work, you do the outer work, and then you're on your way to living your dreams.
Wonderful. Now tell us more about the dual arts of conversation, talking, listening, and body language.
So the dual arts of conversation is, our instinct is when someone asks us a question or when someone is talking, you listen for about 3 seconds and then you start formulating your response. And the true art of listening is when you're able to truly listen to that person completely without thinking about what you're going to respond to, and then articulating your response. And when you're a good listener, you're able to build better relationships. If you don't know what the other person is about, whether it's, in a personal relationship or whether it's a client, you're not going to be able to build a good relationship. It's not going to be successful. If it's a client, you're really not going to understand their needs and what they want if you're not truly listening to them. So I think the power of listening is just really, really important.
Very powerful. Now tell us more about the 10 tips to dress for success.
The tips to dress for success, I would say, I would break that down into probably 3 very simple tips, although the book goes in a lot more detail. I would say dressing for success is making sure that you are clean. Hygiene comes first. And I know it sounds very obvious, but you would be surprised. And I'm sure you've experienced, one of the things that I like to give an example about is bedhead. Bedhead is not a professional look. It's not a thing. It is very well in the fashion industry. In fact, it's very well articulated after the hair is washed, after it has product in it, to give it just that enough of a messy look. So when people just, roll out of bed and get dressed and show up, that's not professional at all. So in order to dress for success, It's all the details that you pay attention to. Be clean, make sure that your clothes are smelling clean. Some of the details is use a lint roller, and always make sure there's no dust or fuzz or anything on your clothes. Those are the type. Make sure your shoes are clean. When you pay attention to those type of details, someone else, the person that you're meeting with, they will notice, they will pay attention. And especially if you're one way or the other, if you completely didn't care about how you showed up, that's very noticeable. It's very obvious. You're judging, okay, this person doesn't really care about themselves. The other thing is when you dress for success, it creates respect. When you do pay attention to the details of how you put yourself together, it shows that you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, other people will respect you.
That's
So,
right.
the power is, not only it's making you feel more confident, but you're also gaining respect. It's elevating your image. Again, whether in the personal or professional world, it's elevating you. It's taking you to the next step when you pay attention to all these details. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and buy $1,000 suit. It really means that you pay attention to how you put yourself together.
That's right, because it truly matters. Now, tell us more about your personal branding success myths and the truth about how to get ahead.
So the personal branding myths, and I'll go back to the previous conversation on this. I think this is where people get confused between one of the myths right now, especially with social media being, so popular, is authenticity. That's a big word right now. And the myth there is being authentic does not mean that you should not be professional. You can be authentic and professional all at the same time. And I think people get confused with that because they say, oh, well, I'm just being my authentic self. This is how I am. This is who I am. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. Well, not caring and being authentic are two different things, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oftentimes it's an excuse to say, okay, well, I don't really care, so I'm just going to do something a certain way. But then you realize you're not being professional either. I want to put on my holy jeans and um, wear slippers or something and let it be acceptable. That's my authenticity. Well, if you're walking into a room of executives, that's not professional and that's wrecking your career. So I think one of the biggest myths is understanding what it means to be authentic and understanding what it means to be professional. Not only professional, knowing your audience, whether you're going out to dinner or you're going to a client meeting, just knowing who you're going to be in front of, having that internal awareness. That's what, to me, that's what modern etiquette is about, is having that internal awareness and then taking the right action towards it.
Very powerful. Now, tell us more about your company, Nita Patel.
So it's a holistic name. I do a few things. As you mentioned earlier, I am an artist. I am an author as well as a speaker. And I coach on all of the above. And so Nita Patel is really about helping you elevate your brand. It's about, the art may be a little bit different, but the art is also elevating your space. My art is very spiritual in that nature. It's uplifting, it's energetic, it's healing. And so whether it's the art or whether it's, my book where it gives advice on the 2-degree shifts that you can make, or it's the consulting or coaching services that I offer, everything holistically is about elevating your brand. And if I can share, one of the things that I'm working on right now. So I'm coaching on the 5-step program. That's one of the services that I offer. And then I'm also offering a new program right now that is Write Your Book in 90 Days. And that's something that I learned from writing my own book. I didn't have the coaching and I didn't have the support that I needed. And so it took me almost 2.5 years to write my book. And I really wanted to help others, and it's two-parted. You're trying to balance your time, and you're trying to figure out how to get all of this wrapped up in a nice manuscript. But you also have that self-talk going on. Is this good enough? Who am I to be the expert? I have to do this for 50 years before I can claim to be the expert. And that's not true. We all know that, right? We provide our expertise every day. But when you start writing a book, it's a little bit different. So I created a 90-day book writing program where I take people through the entire process from start to finish. And at the end of 12 weeks, you have a completed manuscript. And that program starts next week. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to sign up for Nita's 5-step program to confidence. I love it. Now, Nita, why did you write Boss Vibes?
With my art on it. As I mentioned earlier, with the two extreme cultures that I experienced growing up, I couldn't understand why learning how to be proper, learning how to sit a certain way, learning how posture mattered. And then, so I would be in that space for a year, and then I would be in a completely opposite culture where you could slouch and wear anything you wanted and sit however you wanted. But it really helped me understand, the importance of manners, awareness, etiquette. And when I say etiquette, I'm not talking about the rules of society and social, social rules. I'm really talking about how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself, whether in private or public, it doesn't matter. Manners is not, I say this in my book, manners is not like a jacket that you put on and take off. It's a way of being. And not only does it make you feel better, but it creates a different environment around you. It creates a joyful experience in life in general. Eating etiquette, for example, when you're at home, a lot of times we think, okay, well, let me just, if you've ordered takeout or something, let me just eat out of the box and, slouch on the couch and, watch TV. But that affects how we feel, right? You feel sluggish, you feel kind of like a bum. You don't want to do anything. You just want to stay on the couch. You're not motivated. Whereas, you can take the same takeout and put it in a plate. You can sit at the table. You can play some nice music, light a candle. That is a completely different experience, and we chase happiness, we chase joy, we chase peace, we chase all these things, all day long. But what we don't realize is it's those little things that we do every day that is where we find the joy. That's where we find the peace. It's how we feel good about ourselves. It's a very simple experience that we can create for ourselves. And so I just felt compelled to share that with the world. Another reason I wrote it is through my corporate years, I hired a lot of people. I interviewed hundreds of people, and I saw how people showed up. And I felt compelled to share why personal presence matters. And so I talk a lot about, dressing for success, communications, how you conduct yourself in the office or at the workplace, because you don't realize what the perception of you is about, how people see you. And you expect promotions, you expect all these things. But when you take a look at how you're acting and how you're conducting yourself, there's very small shifts that you can do to elevate that perception, to elevate your brand. And so I just felt like I had to share that information with the world and, help people feel good about themselves and just it opens doors for you at the end of the day, right? When you care about how you conduct yourself, or when you have more awareness, it opens doors for you, because all of that leads to confidence. And when you're confident, you make great decisions. When you're not confident, I'm not sure you can really say that you're making great decisions. We go back to eating on the couch and slouching and, just not feeling like doing anything. You're probably not going to make too many great decisions in that moment. But when you're feeling good about yourself, you feel confident, you're making great decisions at that point. So I felt compelled to share all of that with the world.
That's right. Confidence truly matters. Now, how long ago did you start jotting down ideas that would become your debut book?
So like I said, it took me about 2.5 years. And, I had done kind of a brain dump and put some thoughts together, but going through the process took me a little bit. It was a passion project at the time and managing life with everything else. So it took me a little bit to get through that and complete my book, which is why I was like, nope, it should not take this long. This can be done in 3 months or less.
That's wonderful. I'm excited to read your book. Now, what is your professional background and how did it lead you to where you are today?
So as I mentioned earlier, I've been in corporate leadership for 20 years, and I just interacting with the people that I did, hiring people, interviewing people, and seeing how they interacted in a work environment is really what inspired me to write the book.
Very wonderful. Now, how do you define modern etiquette?
Modern etiquette is about awareness and action. When you are aware of where you're at, where you're going, what's around you, who's around you, and taking the right actions followed by that is what I refer to as modern etiquette. It's less about the society rules and more about having that awareness, having that consciousness of, where am I going? How should I be dressed? Who's going to be there? It's all of those things lead to you feeling good about yourself. When you're feeling good about yourself, you, again, depending on where you're going, it opens up doors for success for you. And so modern etiquette is really key, especially in our digital world today, where we're just kind of like locked in our phones and, we're heads down and we're not paying attention to who's around us. I think we're missing out in being in the present moment when we're so lost in our digital devices. And so with modern etiquette, modern manners, it really gives you that experience in everyday life.
That's right. Modern etiquette truly matters. Now, what is the most difficult challenge you've had to face in your life?
Um, a lot every day. No, every year. I would say specific to the book, when writing my book, because it took me such a long time to pull the book together, I was a different person when I started writing the book, and I became a different person at the end of my book. And so at the beginning of the book, I was, coming from a place of frustration. I was, why do people not know how to do this? Why do people not know how to dress a certain way? Why do people, not know how to sit right? It was very frustrating for me. And I went through my own personal growth and my own personal development journey through that period. And so by the end of that, I was coming from a place of compassion. And so the way I had written the book was completely different from the first chapter to the last chapter. And so the biggest challenge for me was I had to go through almost 3 rounds of editing to make sure that everything flowed in a nice manner without having to rewrite the whole first half of the book. And trying to meet deadlines of the publishing team and everyone else, it was a big challenge. But again, another reason why I said, okay, it doesn't have to take this long for anyone who wants to write their book. They should be able to do it in a minimum of 90 days. And, you don't have that gap then because people change, right? Especially people who are aspiring to elevate their life, to develop personally, professionally. And so that was a big challenge that I went through in writing my book.
That's right. The big message here, folks, is to never give up. Use Nita as an example. Now, Nita, was there a time in your life journey where you experienced an aha moment?
An aha moment. I have a lot of those.
Tell us about them.
I think How much time do we have?
A few minutes here. Talk to us.
I would say, a lot of the aha moments come from reading. One in particular that was pretty pivotal to me is the power of making a decision. Uh, I think that we underestimate that. And a lot of times we even avoid making decisions. You want someone else to make the decision, even if it's something simple like, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? you know, you want someone else to give the answer to that. And so the power in making a decision it's just so pivotal and impactful. And it has been for me personally. And there's, so many different instances where I've decided that, this is what I'm going to do. I can give you an art example where I got a call from a gallery one day, and before that, I had set some intentions to say, okay, I've shown in galleries, I've shown in big art fairs. I really want to show in some museums. And so I had set that intention. But when I got this call from this gallery, and they were based out of Sao Paulo, and they called me and they said, hey, we would like to show your work in Paris. And I'm thinking in my head, it's happening in slow motion in my head. And I'm thinking in my head, and I'm like, in that moment, I decided, I was like, no, that's not good enough for me. I want to show my work in a museum. And so I hesitated, I paused, and then I asked, kind of cringing a little bit. I said, I would really like to show my work in a museum. And the guy pauses for a minute, and it's happening so slow in my mind. I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. I ruined this. But he comes back in, a second, and he says, well, do you mind waiting a couple of weeks? No, he said, do you mind waiting a little bit? And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, oh, just a few weeks. We're actually doing a series of shows in Europe, and we can, switch you from the gallery shows to the museum shows. And I said, okay, tell me more. And, we got to talking, and he basically ended up showing this gallery, ended up showing my work at the Louvre, at the Modern Art Museum in Torino, Italy, in New York, just so many different places. But for me, that was a big lesson learned, because I decided that this is what I wanted, and I was able to ask for it. And, had I not made that decision, I probably wouldn't have had those opportunities, and my art career would have been in a completely different place, missing those type of opportunities. So to me, the power of decision is so, so, so critical.
That's right. Decisions truly matter. And once you make the decision, don't turn back. Keep moving forward. I love it. Now, Nita, tell us more about what gives you happiness in your life.
I think it's, like I said, it's all the small things every day. Being able to, as a creative, I also have some, childish habits that I'll call them. I'm not afraid to, when it's pouring rain outside, I'm not afraid to go out and stand in the rain and embrace nature. I think it's really all of the things that happen in your everyday. I think as a society, we have decided that happiness and joy is in these major life milestones. And you hit those milestones and you realize, oh, well, now I'm working to the next milestone. That's not where you find joy. The joy is an everyday life where you're laughing with someone, you're sharing a story with someone that you've connected with, whether it's an old connection or a new connection. It's in, like I said, the dining experience, it's all of the little things that you do every day, all the micro actions, as I call them, that's where you find true joy. That's where you find peace. We're always going to have those big goals that we have to chase, right? We all have these big goals that, okay, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 6 months. And when you get to that point, there's no joy, right? You don't, so a lot of times we don't even celebrate. we're like, oh no, but now I need to get to the next thing. And so for me, happiness is, in all the little things that we do every day.
That is wonderful. Now tell us how important it is to maintain a positive mindset. Explain that to the audience.
Wow. Attitude is everything. It really is. A part of my 5-step program talks about this is, you're not only showing up physically in the right way, it's the mental attitude. It's your mindset. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the mindset and how you show up that is really crucial to where your life goes. If you are always thinking that this is not going to happen, but I'm going to try, I'm not sure if I can do this, if you have this negative self-talk going on in your head, maybe some days things will happen, most of the days they won't, but when you have a strong positive attitude, when you, again, make a decision that this is what I want today, this is what I want this week, this is what I want in this life, that's powerful. And it changes the way you think about things. Instead of becoming the victim, you have now empowered yourself. And there's nothing more powerful than that. When you know that something good is happening, when you know that you can reach your milestone. And so your positive attitude and your attitude in general will determine the fate of your life. It could be good, it could be great, or it could be not so great. And it's really in our hands to decide every morning when we wake up, how do I want to feel today? And what am I going to do about it? And I think most people do the opposite. They wake up and say, oh no, what do I have to do today? And we don't think about how we have to, how we want to feel. And so the to-dos dictate our overwhelm, our frustration. And it's really hard to fight that and find positivity in that versus when you start your day and say, how do I want to feel today? Okay, now what am I going to do, to accomplish that? And not to say that we don't have to do the things that we still have to do the things that we don't like, but at least with that intention, it's not as overwhelming. You're not miserable. I don't know, for someone like me, I don't like doing laundry, but it's not a chore. It's not a task because I've been able to integrate it to say, okay, I'm doing all these other things and I'll just slip it in, in between all of that. But it's about the mental attitude. When we don't want to do something, we push it off and we push it off and we push it off. And a year later, we've set a goal at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, you're depressed because you're like, oh, I didn't get to it. Now, how am I going to, what am I going to do next year? This is a repeated pattern that keeps happening. It really affects your whole life. And so, taking action is really critical to, and taking the right action, is really critical to the results that you achieve, how you feel, your levels of joy, and all of that starts with a great positive mental attitude every day.
That's right. Action and positive self-talk truly matter. Now, Nita, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
Wow, that's very powerful. Do what you love. I think it's that simple, and I don't think I need to explain that anymore. Do what you love. When you do not like, when you wake up and you hate the job that you're going to, you dread your day because you have these meetings that you have to go into and explain yourself to other people. That's not a joyful life. And to really be purposeful, when you're in complete alignment, your health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your financial health, everything falls into place. And so I would say, find something that you love doing and do it with everything you have.
That's right. I love it. Now, Nita, thank you so much for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. I truly appreciate you. Where can the audience find you?
Audience can find me at nita-patel.com. You can find my book anywhere you can buy books online. Barnes and Noble. I was about to say Instagram, not Instagram. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Goodreads, pretty much anywhere. But if you want to find more on my services, then nita-patel.com is where you can find all the information.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Nita at nita-patel.com. And again, Nita, thank you so much for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
Thank you.